Peter's boots crunched softly on the forest floor as he strained his eyes toward a flicker of movement at the edge of the clearing. Every hair on his neck stood at attention. Predator warnings echoed in his mind like a distant drumbeat. When the shape resolved into a massive black bear, Peter dared to exhale. But relief twisted into horror the moment he realized the bear clutched a small, silent body in its claws. His skin prickled with cold shock. A child! A child! The animal's massive paws held the little one close, and when the bear noticed Peter's gaze, it refused to release its grip. How could this be happening? Peter's breath caught as he watched the scene unfold. An impossible tableau that demanded caution and courage in equal measure. And, he wondered, what could he do next? With every nerve screaming, Peter chose the only approach he trusted. Slow, deliberate, fearless. Thoughts raced. Was the bear protecting the child? Or worse, endangering it? He edged forward, each footfall measured so as not to trigger the bear's wrath. The forest was maddeningly quiet, except for his thundering pulse. Then, in a moment that felt suspended in time, the bear set the boy gently on the ground. Peter froze, mind blaring warnings of danger. One more step could cost a life. He met the bear's golden eyes, two fierce sparks in a sea of midnight fur, and held perfectly still, every muscle tensed for the slightest twitch. Could he read the animal's intent in that heartbeat of silence? Suddenly, the bear lunged, not at Peter, but snatching the child back into its arms, and charged off like a storm on the wind. Branches whipped Peter's face as he gave chase, desperate to keep the creature in sight. But in seconds, the forest swallowed them both. Panting, he spun and dashed toward the ranger station, mind a whirlwind of dread and determination. He needed help, backup far more seasoned than himself. Yet when he burst in, recounting the impossible scene, his fellow rangers exchanged skeptical glances. Bears don't abduct children, they said. Peter's heart sank. Could they be so blind? Refusing to accept their doubt, he dialed the police. Minutes later, uniformed officers piled from their vehicles, radios crackling, seriousness etched in their grim expressions. Hope flared until Peter's boss appeared, politely escorting them away for a private word. When they returned, they ignored Peter completely, striding back into the forest without a backward glance. Fresh cruisers arrived, officers barking orders to stay put as they scanned the tree line. Bewildered, Peter confronted his boss and was ordered to sit, questioned like a child, accused of delusion, fueled by grief. Memories of his own lost baby surfaced, hot tears blurring his vision. He pleaded, wept, begged them to help. Get that boy back. But the boardroom walls closed in. Peter was suspended. Colleagues murmured about therapy, insisting his trauma had summoned spectres in the woods. Feeling the world close like a trap, Peter's resolve hardened. No badge, no support, no backup. Only one mission remained. He would save that child himself. His wife tried to hold him back, tears in her eyes, but she knew better than to stand in his path. At dawn's first light, Peter slipped past the forest's guarded edge, heart fierce as iron. He sought out Jacob, his oldest friend and fellow ranger, sleeping soundly until Peter's urgent knocking shattered the silence. Jacob's face registered shock at the story, Peter's desperation earning only a skeptical frown. But when Peter's eyes burned with unshakable purpose, Jacob agreed, if only to keep an eye on his friend. Side by side, under the pale sunrise, they plunged into the quiet wood, following Peter's vivid memory of where the bear had fled. Minutes passed before Jacob froze, pointing at massive tracks pressed into the soft earth, deep indentations, twice the width of his boot. These were no ordinary bear prints. They were absences carved in mud, calling out an extraordinary truth. Peter exhaled a breath he didn't know he'd been holding. The tracks ran toward a dense thicket, and the two men pressed on, senses coiled tight. No birdsong, only the hush of wind through needles overhead. Then, unbidden, a deep roar rolled through the trees, and both knew they were close enough to taste fear on their tongues. Peter took a step toward the sound. Jacob grabbed his arm like a lifeline. Jacob's eyes pleaded. Call for help. Let others share this burden. But Peter's jaw set. He couldn't trust anyone who'd abandoned him. Two men together might stand a chance. Side by side, they pressed deeper, adrenaline propelling them toward a dark opening in the rocky slope ahead. Panic fluttered in Jacob's chest. This wasn't the kind of bear country they'd trained for, but Peter's steady calm drove them forward. As they neared the cave mouth, the forest's dim light surrendered to shadow. Through the gloom, Peter glimpsed the bear's hulking frame, immobile, watchful. And still no sign of the child. Doubt gnawed at his conviction. Had he been mistaken? Then came the softest, most piercing sound, a baby's desperate cry echoing off stone walls. The bear stiffened, charged into the blackness, and the world contracted to the single unshakable fact that the boy was inside. Jacob's breath caught. The bear re-emerged empty-jawed, sniffing the cool air. It paced, sniffed again, as if torn between fury and fear itself. In the silence, Jacob stumbled back, the bare-reared eyes locked on the trembling ranger. Jacob bolted, and the forest tore with his screams. Peter lunged forward, heart hammering. No hesitation now, Jacob yelped, scrambling up a nearby tree as claws raked bark below. Nay, the bear snapped toward Jacob, then roared fury unleashed, but its attention wavered. Peter realized the path to the cave lay clear. Up, dear! "There no time," he muttered, and dashed past Jacob's frozen silhouette into the cave's cavernous maw. Darkness enveloped him. He fumbled for his phone. A pale circle of light cut through the black as he pressed forward, every step measured on slick rock. Then, just ahead, a small form huddled in the corner. The boy, unharmed but terrified, tears glistening in the weak glow. Relief washed over Peter, fierce and sweet, but there was no victory yet. Above the drip of water, he heard heavy steps. The bear was returning. Cradling the child to his chest, Peter backpedaled toward the entrance, every sense alight. A low growl vibrated the ground. The bear lumbered in, muzzle twitching. Peter froze as the animal's eyes locked on his face, then miraculously, its limbs faltered. In the dim light, a dart protruded from its flank. The beast daggered, blinked, and collapsed into a drowsy heap. The tension shattered as fresh voices cried out, "Hold tight, hold!" Spotlight swept the cave. Rangers swarmed in, unshackled sedative guns in hand. Jacob slid from the tree, rushing to embrace his friend and the child. Hospital's lights blinked as the boy was whisked through sliding doors, Peter at his side. Doctors swarmed, gentle hands probing, checking vitals, drawing blood for DNA. Through the night, Peter paced, unwilling to let the child's small hand slip from his grasp. He glanced at the files stacked on the nurse's station, bare intake reports, hospital logs, nothing to explain why the boy's parents hadn't been reported missing. At dawn's pale wash, a police captain beckoned him into a quiet office. Peter braced for blame, or worse, praise he didn't seek. Instead, the captain's voice cracked with sorrow. The DNA proved the bear had, against all odds, cared for the child, and the boy's parents had been found just miles away, victims of a tragic car crash. A hollow ache filled Peter's chest as he absorbed the news. The bear, that feared predator, had become guardian. What would become of this orphan in a world that nearly overlooked him? He looked across the table at his wife, her eyes shining with tears and fierce resolve. Together, they would choose the boy's future. A life born of wilderness, bravery, and human compassion. And as they left the station into the morning light, the forest behind them seemed to exhale, its deepest secrets now shared, and its greatest act of mercy finally understood.